Today, I am thrilled to welcome an incredible guest to Dream to Evolve. Joining us is someone whose career is a powerful testament to the intersection of creativity, culture, and digital innovation. Nia Brown is the brand, social, and fan engagement manager at MTV, where she masterfully bridges the gap between brands and audiences, cultivating authentic connections that resonate deeply in the digital age. Her journey began at the University of Kentucky, where her passion for storytelling and creativity took root. Since then, she's built an impressive career in digital and social media marketing, holding pivotal roles that have shaped how audiences experience music, culture, and media. Before stepping into her role at MTV, Nia worked as the digital and social media marketing coordinator for One Music Fest, where she contributed to one of the most dynamic celebrations of Black music and culture in the country. But that's not all. Nia is also a talented photographer whose lens captures the essence of her world. From music to media, photography to culture, her work embodies her passion and purpose, leaving an incredible mark wherever she goes. It's an honor to have her here today to share her story, insights, and advice for dreamers and creators looking to evolve their own paths. Nia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. That was so beautiful.
Thank you, of course. Thank you for being here. So, you have an incredible story. Walk us through your journey to the University of Kentucky when you were in high school thinking about going to college. What were you thinking about?
Yeah, so putting myself back in that space, I remember being very obsessed with all things storytelling, television culture, music, and trying to find the right career path that would allow me to encompass all of these things, and at the same time, the most financial friendly decision as well. Yes. And after attending a lot of different recruitment events throughout the city of Atlanta, I went to high school in Atlanta, and the University of Kentucky really spoke to me because of their focus on the integration of media in a couple of different programs that they had. Specifically, I ended up becoming really passionate about their integrated strategic communication major. Wow. And it just so happened that this major was not offered in the state of Georgia. And there was this incredible program called the Academic Common Market at the time, where as a senior in high school, if a college in your home state doesn't have the exact major that you want to study, within, I think, 7 or 8 states in the South, you can get in-state tuition in a school that does.
That's incredible.
It was kind of a win-win.
Yes.
So applied for that in-state tuition and ended up successfully achieving it, and also, starting as a freshman in integrated strategic communication.
Wonderful. So did you also receive scholarships or additional academic funding in addition to in-state tuition?
Yes, absolutely. It was honestly a blessing through and through, because outside of the in-state tuition, they had an incredible diversity and inclusion program for students in media specifically called the William C. Parker Scholarship. And I was able to achieve one of the higher amounts offered there, and also because of my academic prowess in high school, was able to have an academic scholarship on top of that.
Amazing.
Everything was really just adding up financially. That felt like this was the right option.
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was really a blessing. I'm really grateful for it.
That's awesome. And in what ways did having that additional support help you navigate either challenges or opportunities in your academic career?
Absolutely. I would say that without having to have the extra stress of thinking about how I was going to pay for the education I was getting, I was really blessed to be able to let my curiosity roam and try multiple different things, organizations, outside of class projects that weren't necessarily required, and doing so without having to have a full-time job on top of it, or a part-time job, and was lucky to be able to fully devote myself mentally to my studies and then any passions that came up along the way. So it was absolutely a blessing to be able to have that academic scholarship to take away any extra stress.
Yeah. And it's important too, because so often you hear about students selecting a college or university because of the network, and having the added stress of having to work and worry about finances throughout your academic career can take away from some of your ability to network and to, build those connections that are so valuable during that time in your life. Can you walk me through mentorship and whether mentorship played a role in how you navigated some of the spaces and clubs or organizations that you were a part of?
Absolutely, I can. Mentorship is extremely important to me, I think, from personal to professional, and throughout college as well, of course. I'm a younger sibling, number one, so I grew up having somebody kind of blaze the trail before me. Yeah. So I was really lucky to be able to see that. And I think having that experience, I really gravitated toward wanting mentorship, especially in college, and wanting to be extremely involved. I ended up my sophomore year pledging into Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated at the University of Kentucky, and was blessed to be able to have upperclassmen as prophytes who were extremely involved on campus, exemplifying incredible academic prowess, and at the same time making time for their social lives and passions. And I'm watching, trying to figure out how they're doing it all. And they were able to teach me so much about time management, about prioritization, about letting your curiosity lead. And from that, I think, additionally, in a professional light, it kind of showed me how important that is in the next phase of life as well. So then, I believe my junior year at Kentucky, I was able to apply to IRTS, International Radio and Television Society Foundation, and was blessed to be able to receive admission for a fellowship program there and have the same kind of guidance from people who have gone through the media and entertainment industry throughout multiple different paths, who have made different pivots, and be able to see things that I'm passionate about, things that I am even curious about, I'm not sure how to build a career out of, and have seen people make the changes necessary to achieve those things. So absolutely, mentorship plays a huge part. I wouldn't be here without any mentors, and grateful to be that to other people now too.
That's awesome. Looking back, you mentioned being a part of the sorority at the University of Kentucky. You were able to look up to a lot of people who were juggling and balancing all these different things, which I'm sure was important, especially with you being from out of state. Yes. Can you talk to me a little bit about any other challenges being out of state and being a student who was so far away from home?
Absolutely. Moving from Atlanta, Georgia to Lexington, Kentucky is a culture shock. Yes. There's a lot of different ways, I think, societally that I just may not have been used to, going to a much smaller town, and obviously not knowing anyone, not having any family. I think I definitely had to learn at an early college age what it meant to maintain relationships with family, number one. But then also the things that you don't necessarily think about in high school that are that I was blessed to have provided for me, like, hygiene products, hair products, meals past the meal plan. You don't necessarily think about those things until you have to think about those things.
Yes.
And all of those are not only extra financial expenses, but, it takes extra time. And wanting to be so involved, wanting to make a mark on campus can sometimes be a bit of a challenge to attain while doing all the extra things on your plate.
Yes.
So I think care packages definitely with those products would have been extremely helpful, and support looking back. And then I'm really grateful for the kind of relationship maintenance that I learned during that time. I think both personally and professionally, I try to check in with folks as often as possible. And it's taught me a lot to be able to keep that going in the future.
And that's really important, relationship maintenance. It's one thing to put yourself into rooms and have an opportunity to meet people and connect with people, but maintaining those relationships is really where the work happens, right? So let's jump forward and talk a little bit about your career. So you joined the IRTS program. Now you've been a part of the Paramount family for a number of years. Looking back on your experience, can you tell us a little bit about how you were able to navigate your passion and integrate that into a corporate space?
Yeah. So finding the passion, I do have to go a little bit backwards for. In college, I definitely, in my major, was very interested in storytelling, like we discussed, but also from a strategy perspective, understanding what kinds of content audiences resonate the most with, what they react to, what feelings they evoke, and doing so from a brand and business mindset really intrigued me. And then there was this entire other side of my college career where, you know, with your electives, you're trying new things. I was a digital media and design major, and I ended up taking a few photography classes on a whim. Fell in love with photography. And I think from different critiques that we used to have in projects, I used to really understand, after seeing an image, how different types of people reacted to them, the different stories they told to different people, depending on where people are in their lives when they see them. And at the time, it didn't resonate to me that these things could be combined. It felt like two different jobs for two different people. It felt like something that you would have to keep more separate, not realizing that there's a niche in each that can overlap.
Yeah.
And fast forwarding back to my corporate career, in working at MTV, it's a blessing to be able to not only be speaking on behalf of a brand, but also allowing artists to have the MTV platform at their use for different music releases, film, whatever it may be, and getting to tell those stories and place them in front of different audiences at strategic times for engagement, reach, whatever that may be. And a large part of that had kind of fallen to the wayside when I had got there during the height of COVID, was kind of on the ground storytelling, and in having a very casual conversation with my boss about what I was doing in my free time, which was shooting and still working on my photography skills and really building up my own business at that point. She mentioned to me, you know, in the past, before COVID really hit, we were covering these festivals, telling these editorialized stories from the MTV perspective. And we used to have a photographer be able to go with us. But, you know, if this is something that you're passionate about and you want to be able to have the two overlap, I'd be happy to send you from both our strategy perspective and help in production, but also to shoot some of these different cover stories. And of course, I jumped at the opportunity. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was possible. And I think it just goes to show that even if it's not something you saw being possible in the early stages of your career, or even as a student, that curiosity and developing that passion too at the same time, it's able for them to come to a head and meet, not necessarily even from my own doing, but because someone else, a mentor, again, kind of created that lane for me because she had the power to do so. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm still able to do that today.
And that's awesome. That is also just a testament to understanding that, you know, we have jobs, but we also have passions.
Yes.
So to be working behind the scenes or in the background, just honing those skills and sharpening them, it seems to be what led you to have this opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. I think too often people don't realize that you can have, your corporate career, but you can also dive into your passions and explore where that takes you and where that leads you. So
Absolutely.
to hear your story is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And I love that you were able to utilize mentors to kind of help you find that path, because it can be difficult sometimes navigating, how to intersect those two things.
Absolutely.
So it's great that you were able to do that. So looking at your career journey so far, what accomplishment or moment would you say you're most proud of?
Most proud of, I would say, I think getting the chance to be able to work at a One Music Fest before making the transition to MTV, it was incredible to have such a focused lens on Black culture, which has raised me, that I am now a part of as an adult. And to have the opportunity now on a mainstream level at MTV to amplify voices that through social and digital content, and even now IRL opportunities, it's been great to be able to bridge the gap from a mainstream audience perspective. And in doing so, every year MTV does a Women in Rap Week. A colleague of mine started it one year in 2020, actually. And it has grown into this celebration of both legacy and emerging female MCs, where we highlight on MTV platforms their artistry, but also the stories behind what they do every day. And I've been blessed for the past 4 years to be able to take that on and lead that campaign since this colleague of mine has moved on. And to have their blessing to do that has been great. And to also use the MTV platform to allow emerging artists and established artists to reach new audiences, and to have performances go further on the internet, go further IRL with different showcase opportunities in the building that we've been able to create. That campaign has definitely been super close to my heart, and I'm very proud of it, to be able to showcase Black talent and Black women, and the culture that continues to push pop culture forward.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful.
Well, thank you for all that you've done and all that your former colleague has done to push the culture forward and to continue this narrative. So thank you for the amazing work you're doing to celebrate Black music and women in music in particular.
Thank you so much.
So that's amazing. For students who are entering college and have undefined career goals, what would you recommend for exploring their passions, and how can they do things that can help them kind of craft this creative career that you've been able to do?
That is a great question. And I feel like it has a two-part answer. I feel like curiosity is a huge part of it, and following that, but then also intentional research. As I was thinking back on this before having this conversation, I realized that even in my college dorm, certain films or things would come out to where I would be watching the credits to see, who had been producing these things and who the still photographers were on set. For example, Beyonce's Black is King had come out, I believe, when I was a senior in college.
Yes.
And I thought that was so beautifully done.
Yes.
Visually, artistically, every piece of it, it was just so well done. And I remember watching the credits and seeing that there were still photographers in the credits. And I'm like, interesting. So I Google all of these people and find all of their Instagrams and see all of the different journeys that they've taken to get where they are. And so many of them are coming from different paths. None of them have had any linear movement, I would say, to working with somebody as incredible and high level as that. So it went to show that there are so many different ways to be able to get to a career like that. But then also doing the research and looking at the producers. Marketing teams are in the credits as well, and having the chance to be able to see what those strategies are like, what campaigns they've worked on in the past, all from Google, LinkedIn, Instagram. There's so many different resources on the internet now for you to be able to see what people's journeys have been.
Yes.
And I had my my rabbit hole eras for sure, in figuring out, you know, what titles these people had, and what companies, brands were looking for things like that, or artists and entities at the same time. So research, number one. And then I would say curiosity again. Anything I feel like in college that you have a piqued interest toward, it's worth exploring. You have so much time. 4 years doesn't feel like a lot of time, but you have that plus the rest of your life. And if there are classes offered to be able to hone any of those skills or passions, whether it's in a creative industry like photography, or, for example, if you're into intramural sports and then you're also wanting to work in media and entertainment, and then the two mesh at like an ESPN, you know, like there are ways for all of these passions to intersect. And I think following that curiosity for your personal benefit as well as professional is really important, whether it becomes overlapped with your professional career or not, because you never know down the line when that could happen.
Exactly. That's incredible. Well, Nia, thank you so much for joining us for the show today and enlightening us on your path to becoming such an amazing creative and someone who's pushing the culture. So thank you again for being so amazing, but all of your hard work with MTV.
Thank you so much for having me, Danielle.
This
is beautiful. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Yes, of course.